Welcome to the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast, where we equipped you to more effectively lead your seat at any employer, business, or industry in which you choose to play. Each week, we help you sharpen your leadership acumen by cracking open the playbooks of dynamic leaders who are doing big things in their professional endeavors. And now your host, leadership tactics and organizational development expert, Karen Farrell Rhodes.
Hello, my superstars. This is Karen, and welcome to another episode of the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast. I am so honored and pleased to have on today's show Stephane, and I'm going to get his name right. I promised I would. Akoki. So Stephan Akoki. Right. And Stephan is the CEO of Elevate Côte d'Ivoire. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. And Côte d'Ivoire is a nonprofit dedicated to lifting others out of poverty through education and job opportunities. Now, while Stephan is doing great work on his own, it was actually his story that really captured my attention and compelled me to really want to get him on the show. He's going to talk more about it during our episode, but just to give you a teaser, he shares being scammed, and left stranded in China. And I've been to China before many times, so that I have to hear more about. All the way to finding a way to the U.S. and overcoming obstacles to ultimately lead a very impactful nonprofit organization that is really giving back and making an impact on the community. So officially, welcome to the podcast, Stephan.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so honored to have you. Well, before we delve into, like I said, to your fascinating story, we always love to learn just a tad bit more about our guests. So for just as much as you feel comfortable, would you give us a sneak peek into your life outside of work?
Yeah. I like to tell my friends, sometimes I feel like I don't have much of the life outside of work, but when I'm not working, I love to travel. I was in Japan a few months ago, and it was incredible. Yeah. Great to be back to Asia and then get to know a new culture and a new language. So that's awesome. Yeah. And I love to walk. I like to go and walk. It's my time for me to think and process things and enjoy nature. So I do quite a bit of walking. So between traveling and walking, that's where you'll find Stephan at sort of work.
Oh, so we have so much in common, Stephan, because first, I love to travel too, internationally. Okay. You probably beat me, but I've been to over 30 countries and still have a ton more to visit. But
you totally beat me.
No, did I really?
Yes, that's amazing. Yeah. And I would love to hear China and what you were doing there now. But
yeah, well, before my listeners know, before I started my own firm, I spent over 14 years at Microsoft in global roles. And so part of that was visiting a ton of countries. So I got a chance to do it then, but then I kept that love for it going on my own. And Tokyo and Beijing are two of my favorite cities. So we've definitely got to talk and catch up after the podcast.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Well, thank you for giving us that sneak peek, and I would love to learn more about Côte d'Ivoire. But if you don't mind, can you start out with your personal story, and then kind of end up with what led you to being the CEO of Côte d'Ivoire and what you all do there?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, like you mentioned, I was born and raised in Côte d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire is in West Africa. It is a former French colony, so we've inherited the French language as our main language. And it's a very culturally diverse country. 60 different tribes, close to 80 different languages. Think about it as the size of New Mexico, and you have like 60 different languages.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so it's a very, very fascinating country. I like to tell people, like, I grew up around so much diversity. You go to school and you have 10, 12, 15 tribes, and everyone's speaking their own language and all, and it's quite incredible. And the food diversity is also incredible. I like to say, if I didn't like what my mom has made because of she's cooked things from her tribe, I just go to the neighbor of the different tribe and I eat what I like over there. So it's a very, very, very great country and community and all that. But unfortunately, we've had some really rough times. So starting in 1999, we had our first coup d'etat, and I remember seeing it in the news, and I was young then. I was about, I think, 10 years old, and
Mm-hmm.
asking my dad, like, what does that even mean? Coup d'etat. That was the first time I heard of that. But then
Mm-hmm.
that led to like multiple civil wars. So I would
Oh.
say most of my lifetime in Ivory Coast was the country was at war, for different reason, internal conflict and all. So
Mm-hmm.
it's created a lot of challenges. You know, you have the challenge of poverty and access to quality education, and then ultimately, in close to 2011, we've had what we call the grand finale. That's when the war ended.
Mm-hmm.
But that cost, unfortunately, the life of thousands of people. And for me, the way it impacted me and my family is my university was in the midst of the conflict, so it got shut down because it was quite severely damaged. So
Oh no.
that's when my story, my journey started. You know, I'm 21 year old, and my university is not there anymore, and no opportunity to go to school. And the economy is struggled quite a bit, so no money.
Mm-hmm.
So you have major challenges that we face. You know, between civil war, like I mentioned, financial struggle, couldn't afford to go to private college. I remember the tuition was we were missing like something like $300 to $400 to be for me to get to school. I wanted to go to computer school, but we couldn't afford that. By the time we gathered money between like relatives and friends, to the admission has closed already. So missed
Mm-hmm.
a year, missed another one, and so lots of difficulty that way. And you know, we've tried scholarship options, but then you have corruption where you know scholarships are only given to people with connection to the government or people with money. So it's counterintuitive. You would think, you know, scholarships opportunities should be available to those who cannot afford
Mhm.
education.
Exactly. You would
Yeah,
think.
I had the grades, but it was like, oh, you need to pay $200 for a scholarship. It's like, wait, but if I do pay for that, how do I pay for the registration? So it was a chicken and egg problem where I got the scholarship, I never could make it to the school because I couldn't afford both.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so then that's what led to China. You know, parents were like, you know what, looks like there's nothing here for you. And we've tried a lot of different things. You know, I tried some businesses over there, but you know, the environment for entrepreneurship is very, very, very difficult. Not a lot of opportunities, not a lot of funding opportunities, and then again, lots of scams and corruption. And then so parents were like, you know, you need to explore going abroad options. And that's where China came into the picture. There was this agency that my friend told me about that could help students go to China. And my first reaction was China, like who goes to China?
Right.
I was like, who goes to China? Everybody goes to France, Europe, you know, all those countries we're maybe more familiar with and languages that are similar to ours. But I decided to give it a shot, and my family was willing to sacrifice everything they had. We took two bank loans because we didn't have the means, and then I eventually ended up in China. But then I get the second half of the story was, you know, I get to China in Tianjin, you know, right
Mm-hmm.
south of Beijing, and then no one shows up at the airport. That's kind of how the story starts. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? I don't speak this language. I don't know even anything
Ah.
about the city. And now it's just trying to talk to people and asking questions, and no one speaks English. And it was really hard. Eventually, you know, I found a taxi, you know, with some sign language and all. We got to the university, and I was like, okay, good. The university at least exists. Then the
Yeah.
next day I go to the admission, and they say, we didn't know you were coming.
Oh
And I tell them, hey,
no.
I'm here for this degree. And they're like, oh, no, we don't have that. It was supposed to be a computer science English degree. I said, no, you never signed up for that. And we only sign up for Chinese classes. So I was like, wait, I think there's a misunderstanding. And then, you know, later we find out that the agency, the middleman, really took all the money for housing and tuition and just signed me up in some random Mandarin class. And so,
Oh
yeah, so
wow.
that was the start of the story. And then from there, really had to, it was a very, very difficult time, obviously, like trying to find food and housing and about work my way until I find opportunities to get a scholarship. And now I'm here in the US and graduated with my information system degree. So it took a long time through all those challenges, but you know, was privileged enough to get an opportunity to come here and like I said, live the American dream.
Oh, I know that was, a 30-second almost rundown, but living that probably had to be, I don't know if there's a right adjective for it, like overwhelming, nerve-wracking. But one of the things I want to let listeners know, just for their own edification, um, in China, for the most part, because it is a communist country, they are not used to people of color being there. And in my visits there, they thought we were like famous. I still remember I went over there for business for a couple of weeks, and then I brought my family over for
Mhm.
10 days to let them experience it. And we were followed everywhere. People asked to take pictures because they hadn't seen people of color before,
Right.
I guess, other than maybe the Olympics.
Mhm.
But everyday individuals didn't. And so people were extremely fascinated
Mhm.
with us. And most, to your point, most did not speak English. The only ones that generally did were those that worked in hotels,
Mhm.
and some of the youth, the really young youth. I
Mhm.
guess they were learning some English in school. But the key to surviving there, believe it or not, you can get a lot done with just gestures. When
Mhm.
people say you have to know the language, not necessarily.
Mhm.
Gestures, like you said, sign language, trying to get people to understand. We did that because we traveled outside of the main touristy areas.
Mhm.
But the one thing you always had to keep on you was a card of a taxi driver who spoke English and the
Mhm.
card of your hotel. So no matter where you went, you could show it to somebody and they would, get you to where you needed to be. So
I wish I got that tip before I went there because I got lost too many times.
we got lost a few times, but I had those cards.
Yeah.
And so we were always able to get back to ground zero. But
Yeah.
wow, that's
Really smart.
amazing.
I mean,
Well, you survived to tell the story, which
yeah,
is
no, seriously. Like
amazing within itself.
as you're saying, sorry,
No, no,
um,
no, go ahead.
as you were saying, talking about, being a person of color over there. One funny story that came up to me was, I got there and I remember, I think the roommates in the university were, from Canada and other places around the world. And I finally, meet, like, say, a brother, the guy from Kenya, and I was like, hey, I have a question, man. It's like, why are they staring at me like that? I had no clue. I genuinely didn't know.
Yeah,
And then he's like, come closer, let me tell you a secret. And he was like, you're black.
that's right.
I was like, wow, that's right. Coming from, came from Africa, obviously, most of the people around, I'm used
Yeah.
to be the majority. I've never really been in an environment where I was a minority. So it was quite a funny realization. I was like, yeah, he's right. I look different. That's right.
It is, and it was, but you know what? I will say
Mhm.
um, that I never felt like they were looking down on me or didn't like me or my
Mhm.
family. I mean, obviously they knew we were, guests.
Mhm.
We were technically under business visas,
Mhm.
but they wanted to take pictures and
Right.
laugh, and
Yeah.
it always reminds me that we have more in common than we
That's
have
right.
different.
That's right.
And I learned a few words of Mandarin, but just enough to get by
Mhm.
in an emergency, like bathroom, restroom,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
food restaurant place.
Mhm.
But that was one of the best experiences that
Yeah.
I've had. But I had the umbrella of being there under a global company too on
That's right.
business, so
Yeah.
that gave a lot of context to
Yeah.
people while were trying to go to school and get out of a very difficult situation. So by no means do I compare our experience to yours at all.
Yeah. Yeah, but I was definitely wanted to emphasize, learning the language. That's my tip
Yeah,
to, having lived in so many countries. It's like, when in Rome, do as a Romance. Like,
that's right. That's
people
right.
open up and is so much more cheerful and willing to accept you when you try to learn their language.
When you
And
try,
that
yes.
was a survival tip for me. Like, I realized, the classroom alone was not enough.
Yeah.
It was just not enough. I had to get out there, and then it's a more reserved culture, as you may have observed. People
Mm-hmm.
don't just talk to strangers. So I was definitely, it was very strange to people that I would approach them, and I was like, tell me more about your story. And my favorite thing was actually talking to older people,
Yeah.
that some of them were alive, during the early days of communism. And they will tell you things like, I cannot believe that foreigners now come to China, because that was not a thing many, many, many years ago.
Yeah.
And hearing the stories, and most of it I did not understand, but it was a good practice. And as it helped me evolve my language skills a ton. And one of my favorite things to do in the US is go to Chinatown and just switch to Mandarin, and then everybody screams like,
Of course.
"Oh
Yes.
how do you speak our language? This is crazy." And I was like, "I am one of you. I'm from China." And they just and they look confused because I have the northern accent, the Beijing accent, and
Uh-huh.
the deep throat.
Deep throat.
Mandarin.
Yes.
And they're like, "Wait, he doesn't look like me, but he sounds a little bit like me. I'm confused." And this is one of my favorite thing about living internationally and becoming a global citizen. It's awesome.
Oh, absolutely. And I consider myself a citizen of the world as well. I say I'm based in Atlanta, live in Hartsfield Jackson Airport, but am a citizen of the world. And
That's
I
right.
love that, because you're right. And I won't say I didn't get perfect in Mandarin. Like I said, I got a few phrases and a few words here and there, but they appreciate you trying.
That's right.
And also, if you brush up on like basic etiquette,
That's right. Hmm.
you'll know, like you said, they have a very conservative culture.
Hmm.
Um, they uh, they really believe in say sometimes it's hierarchical. It is,
Hmm.
but they also,
Hmm.
you always want to save face. You never denigrate anyone, but
Hmm.
just appreciating and following the customs that they've been brought up in,
Hmm.
respecting those
Hmm.
really goes a long way. And if they see you're trying to respect,
Hmm.
they open up to what said, and they're so loving and helpful.
Yep.
I
Yep.
found once you're able to make those initial connections.
Yep. Yep. I agree. I agree. And I love to, another several tip is, like you mentioned, like being adaptable, being willing to absorb the culture into you. But
Yes.
what is always interesting in my case is, when I change country, like I come to the US, I'm trying to bow to people, and they're like, "Oh no, not different country."
Yeah.
Different way of greeting. People try to hug me, and I was like, "Oh, hey, no, oh no, we'll bow, hug." And it takes always a few weeks to get adjusted to a new way of doing things. And
Oh, absolutely.
that's incredible. There's so much beauty in diversity, and I'm
It
so
is.
grateful for those experiences. Looking back, like your point was really, really, really hard, but
Yeah.
it has definitely shaped me into a much better person and having those global perspective.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Well, I don't. I know we've been chatting. This has been great, but I want to share with the listeners the fantastic work you're doing with your nonprofit. And I know I didn't give
Mhm.
it justice. So, can you please share more about the nonprofit and the impact you're trying to make in the communities?
Yeah, of course. So Elevate Côte d'Ivoire, like you mentioned, is here to empower individual in Africa. We're now in 6 countries. Côte d'Ivoire, because that's where I'm
Wow.
from. That's where
Yeah.
my heart is, obviously. But we're providing educational opportunities, job opportunities across the African continent, and it's really, really incredible. So again, tying back to my story, it was such a difficult experience for me. Took about a 10 year journey for me to get access to good education, and an affordable education. And I kept thinking, it shouldn't be this hard. And all I wanted really is a better life. It didn't have to be abroad. In fact, my preference was to stay home, and
Mhm.
get that education and get the job so I can live, a decent life. So when I moved here, I remember meeting my college president, and he asked me, "What are you hoping to accomplish with your time in the college?" And I said, and that was 10 years ago. I need to learn all that I can from the United States and its educational system, and I need to be able to take it back to my country. Um, I was like, but then again, I was like, well, I need to do something now.
Mhm.
Folks were like, well, I mean, you're doing a nonprofit, but you're broke. You don't have money. You need charity right now. Like, how do you help others? But I remember something my mom always taught us as kids. Food was scarce. Opportunities were scarce for us. But she will always, when she cooks, we will usually have the meal will be you'll be served your meal. So like, hey, here's your portion. Everyone has their portion. It was quite a shift when I moved here, and I was like, buffet style. I was like, what? I can have it.
Yeah.
So, but she would always save a portion on the side, and I was like, well, mom, like, we barely have enough. Like, why can't we eat that portion? And she was like, this is for the stranger that might be hungry.
Yes.
This is for the person that might need it. That may come tonight. We don't know. And I'm always like, no. As a kid, I was like, nah, this is not that. We're hungry. And she's always taught us to think about others, put others first, even when we have the least. And that taught me the principle of, giving is not about how much you have, it's about the content of your heart. And if you care about others, you don't need to have a ton to start. And so for me, I started actually with taking my business school notes. I would call my friends on, I think it was Skype then. And there were local entrepreneurs trying to figure out how to make a living and make a good life. And I would say, hey, look, this is what the Americans are saying. They're saying, they're pretty good at business, they've done well in this country. So they're saying you should do this, you should do that. This is how you should track your revenues. You should start having KPIs and all those principles that I didn't know that was so exciting to learn.
Yeah.
I just started taking those notes and just teaching over Skype. And that's how Elevate started, providing education to local small businesses. And we're able to 2x, 3x their growth in businesses. And I was like, I gotta keep doing this, but it needs to be at scale. So I needed a curriculum. I needed to be able to get a team. And from there, with my college years, I recruited a few friends that have helped with the vision and with the implementation of things. And over the years, I kept evolving it to like, okay, how do we make more impact? How do we solve problems for people? And today, in the past 2 years, we've landed with jobs. Jobs is the best way to give people, the financial independence they need and also stability they need. Because you create a job for someone and you have, in a way, like we've been able to 5x to 10x people's income. My favorite story is Ruth from Nigeria, who was working 3 different jobs and making less than making between $50 and $100 a month. And a single mother of 2 kids, that was super, super hard for her to, having worked so much yet earning so much less. And we mapped her with, through our virtual assistant program, we mapped her with a company here in the United States where she's doing, virtual assistant services, admin services, social media work. And then she's earning like over 5 times what she was earning. And the powerful thing about this plan is, how stability enables people to dream. Like it's a radical change and shift in their lives. And now I'm seeing, like, she's telling me like, yeah, my oldest now wants to be a doctor, my youngest wants to be an engineer. And those are families that were just surviving every single day. It's like, no, I cannot think I can do more because I cannot have my basic necessities aren't taken care of. And I've seen that shift in me when I moved here. Like my whole life was survival, just always the next meal, the next thing. And I came here and I was very, very fortunate to have an adopted family here that, gave me a place to stay. And, and I was like, not having to worry about where to sleep, like in China, I was always running away from my landlord because I didn't. And then like trying to figure out food every single day was like, oh, I don't have to worry about where to sleep. I don't have to worry about what to eat. Like I remember my early days in the US, like I'll just open the fridge and I'll just stare at it. And
really?
my American mom, always be like, what, do you want something? I was like, no, I'm just looking. The fact that the fridge was full was amazing,
right? But when you take that, when you don't have that fear of not having the basics, that frees up your mind to be able to focus on other things, right?
Exactly, yeah. And for me, like I went on to have a successful career in tech, work with large companies like Deloitte. I invested in real estate. I do a bunch of real estate and I have the nonprofit. Like I was able to do so much because I didn't have to worry about the basics. And that's where the shift happened with Elevate, where I'm like, we got to help people get through their basics.
I love
If you
that.
get them a job, they have more money than they had before, and then their basic needs are taken care of. Like, it's incredible to see that. Ruth I just talked about, she now has a chicken farm. She's doing
Oh,
her entrepreneurship on the side, and it's just so beautiful to see that impact that we're making. And the other beautiful thing about Elevate too, we are a sustainable nonprofit. So
mm,
actually, less than 1% of our revenues come from donation. It comes from
wow.
the businesses we built that are helping the community, that are helping the individual we serve, and then we use the extra money to do more humanitarian work
Uh-huh.
as we grow, and create more impact across the community. Um,
Oh,
yeah, so
that is
that's what
so
we do.
tremendous. Now, I have a question. Are all of your students, if you will, I know they're all different ages, but if all the students or people that you assist, are they
Mhm.
all in Africa or are they in other countries as well?
All in Africa, all in
Mm-hmm.
Africa. So
Mm-hmm.
between Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana,
Mm-hmm.
Nigeria, DR Congo, Kenya, Zambia, yeah, and
Yeah,
we keep expanding.
that's
So we have
amazing.
we have the education program, which is evolving into building a university, which we're excited about. Next year we'll
Oh,
have our first campus.
I'm
Um,
excited for you all.
yeah, thank you, thank you. And then from once they go through our program, then we match them with job opportunities here, and then aiming to 5x or 10xing what they would have earned in their respective countries.
Oh. And I'm curious, do you, for your more successful individuals,
Mm-hmm.
is there a way for them to kind of give back and mentor or bring up others as well, since you all have really helped transition them and their mindset and their financial stability? I'm wondering, is there a way that you all have that they can also give back?
Yeah. That's a fantastic question. So the two ways, I'll say two primary ways they can give back
Mhm.
right now. One, they actually work for the nonprofit as well.
Oh,
So
okay,
so
cool.
Ruth, so Ruth that I mentioned, she's in charge of customer success, making
Nice.
sure all of our virtual assistant clients are well taken care of. She's also in charge of sales. So they all have managerial, the more senior ones have
Hmm.
managerial opportunities. So it's actually, I mean, I like to say it's African imagined, it's also African led.
I love that.
So like from customer success to, we have Thomas from Ghana, who is the
Hmm.
head of social media. We have Ba from Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, who is the head of education. And then they have others that they're working with in training and mentoring and providing internship opportunities. So we can also scale this as beyond just me and the board members. So yeah, they're heavily involved in everything that we do, and as well as so yeah, I said two things. Now I'm trying to remember. So there's the part where they work for us,
That's all right.
and there's a second part I forgot, but maybe it was just one thing. Yes,
That's
that's
okay. That's all right. That's plenty. That's plenty and enough. But I just
yeah,
wondered, was there any avenues? And I love that you've already set that up.
yeah, yeah,
Well, Stefan, I looked at the time and I can't believe we're almost at time. I could
yeah.
probably talk to you for another 4 hours. But we cannot let you get out of here without asking you our signature question that we ask all of our guests. And for my new listeners out there, you may or may not know that our firm did research on the success factors of leadership execution regarding high performing leaders. And there are 7 big buckets that came out of our research of things that people do. We call them tactics, but things that people do when they're really leading at the top of their game. And we always ask our guests which of the 7 really pop for them. And all 7 are equally as important. You use them at different times and in different situations, but usually there's one that really resonates. And based on Stefan's story, it is no surprise that he shared with me that intrapreneurship really resonated with him. And the way we define intrapreneurship is all about building organizations or efforts by identifying new opportunities to develop or improve operations, products, or services. So it's whatever you're doing, whatever entity you're in, whether you're at an employer, a nonprofit, can be government, or in a regular job, whatever entity you're in, always looking for ways to develop or improve operations, products, and services. So curious minds would love to know, Stefan, why did entrepreneurship really resonate with you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll say, it goes back to, my life stories and my experiences. You are in a country where there's not enough jobs, there's not a lot of opportunities. The government really necessarily trying helping as much as they should.
Right.
So you're thought to be very creative. My mom always tells us, hey, so to succeed here, you either are a son or a daughter of a politician, or you have a lot of money. Turns out you have neither. So we gotta be very creative, and I think it's starting from the individual level, which is coming up, problem solving all the time, thinking about ideas, thinking about thinking outside the box that could help change your life. And I'll say that's what has impacted my journey throughout, whether in China and always, okay, I'm here, I don't know anybody, I don't speak this language. How do I get from where I am to the next level?
Right.
And that's how, I do entrepreneurship. I feel like entrepreneurship, turning ideas into a reality for me, is what has changed my life, my trajectory. And it's similar. And right now where I'm at is like the fact that principle is now used to change the life of others. Elevate again was just an idea and a concept that we could do. But now from Utah, we're working in 6 different countries. So people I've never met, actually, the majority of all remote, that I would love to travel to all these places and be able to see them. But it's just so beautiful to see that, it was just one thing from my experience. I was like, I could do something about this. And then the model was not in the model where we're going after, the sustainable non-for-profit model did not exist. And we were told it's a bit crazy to do that. But, we did it. It is just incredible to see now the ripple effect. And that's why I love entrepreneurship so much, and the way it could change and impact the life of others.
Wow, that is just tremendous. And I just applaud you and your team for the foresight, the resilienceness that you all have demonstrated. And, your story is perfect about, you don't have to have a perfect plan. You just have to make baby steps and learn how to pivot when obstacles come into your way. And you're such an inspiration. But before we let you get out of here, we of course will have your bio, links to where to find you and your organization in the show notes. But we love to give airtime to our guests to share as well. So if people are more curious about you and your organization, where can they find you?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn, Stephan Akoki, and I post actively about what we do in our organization. They could also email me at stephanakoki@gmail.com. And, like I said, we do education and job creation. The best way to help us is really to give us a job. We typically don't raise money per se. So as you give us a job, we help. You help change the life of someone, and also gives us the revenues that we need to make an impact. And for those who are interested in any sort of virtual assistant services, whether it's from video editing, content creation, administrative tasks, bookkeeping, and all, you could go to elevatevirtualassistant.com. And you could book a time with us and see our services. And if you're interested in volunteering to our organization, like I said, we're launching Elevate University next year. We're getting professors and people that are helping the curriculum and all the things we've never done before. But hey, you gotta start somewhere.
You do. You have to put a stake in the ground.
Exactly. If you have that experience, and you probably know more than we do, please go to oneelevate.org, and then under volunteer, we would love to have your insights, your experience. And I think there's a lot of opportunities on the African continent, and we have the potential with technology. We have the potential to transform the lives of millions, but it's only possible with a strong community and a group of people that are willing to support that vision. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, we're so happy to have you, and we wish you continued success, Stephan.
Thank you.
And thank you to listeners for the gift of your time as well. We know that there are literally millions of other podcasts you could be listening to, but we do not take your patronage lightly at all. All that we ask is you to like and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform of choice, and share our podcast with just one friend, because by doing so, it'll help us all better lead at the top of our games. Thanks so much, and see you next week. And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening to the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast, where we help you lead your seat at any employer, business, or industry in which you choose to play. You can check out the show notes, additional episodes, bonus resources, and also submit guest recommendations on our website at leadyourgamepodcast.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn by searching for the name Karen Rhodes, with Karen being spelled Karan. And if you like the show, the greatest gift you can give would be to subscribe and leave a rating on your podcast platform of choice. This podcast has been a production of Shockingly Different Leadership, a global consultancy which helps organizations execute their people, talent development, and organizational effectiveness initiatives on an on-demand project or contract basis. Huge thanks to our production and editing team for a job well done. Goodbye for now.